nothing, they say I'm wrong. They don't know how to play the game.
Welcome to this latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and this episode we are going to be discussing tariffs. Joining us for the discussion is Marilee Rendulich and Daniel Thomas. I recently bought a swing set for my granddaughters from Home Depot. The parts were delivered in a UPS box. It took me 3 days to assemble it, another 2 days to secure the legs in the ground with concrete. Not surprising, the parts were manufactured in China, and the swing set cost me $140. An additional 25% tariff would have bumped that price up to $175. If I bought that after today's swing, I would have had to pay $315 for something I bought for $140. I wanted to cite one real life example of an American consumer, me, participating in the global economy when shopping at an American retail vendor, Home Depot. Before asking you both as non-experts the first question, what is your understanding of tariffs and how they work? Marilee, let's start with you. What do you understand about tariffs?
I understand that it is a surcharge on goods delivered to the United States or, our shores from other countries, either partially produced there or completely produced there. And but I also understand we've long held limited tariff policies as part of our World Trade Organization agreement to further emerging nations and globalization. So I understand this went back to post-World War II, where we were trying to implement more reasonable economic policies that would help a lot of countries because we were the wealthiest country and we took this leadership role. I understand tariffs are not an equal system. It's I don't fully comprehend. I mean, I understand we operate at a trade deficit, but I also understand we're the number one consumers internationally. We need so much, we buy so much, and we can never produce everything that we need. We either don't have it here, we don't have the geography to produce it, or we don't have a reasonable infrastructure to produce it. Certainly things that require a lot of labor-intensive work, such as clothing and shoes and that kind of manufacturing, iPhones, were just too expensive. It wouldn't be cost effective for us to produce it. So having this stuff produced for us from other countries and bringing it in here is one thing. But when you start adding tariffs, there's your extra charge. That 25% or 124% as it is today just gets tacked on to the base price. So I know we also export a lot of products and we have that ability to offset our trade deficit through our exportations, but we don't necessarily, I guess we just don't have enough, certainly not with China. China does not have an open border with us when it comes to trade. But a lot of countries do, mostly all of our allies. So I don't know that our trade deficit is horrific with most of our allies. I don't know what it is nation by nation, but I know that the administration is just having a meltdown over the overall trade deficit and trying to reap money into our shores.
Do you think that the pain that is being felt by the lower income Americans is due to trade? Or is it there's something else that is making this disparity in wealth occurring with the people who are hurting in America?
I don't think it has anything to do with trade. I think the trade actually keeps our prices very competitive because they're using child labor to build all of our products in the Asian communities. That's a terrible thing to say, but
it's true though.
Yeah, I don't think that's the cause. That's the harm. We have offshored a lot of our industry because we just want too much money to make something.
Right.
And now we're shoveling out our immigrant population. So they may have been, willing workers in some of these so-called, new industries that are industries he's trying to bring back to our shores. But I don't think that's what the problem is at all. I don't know that I don't understand completely the dissatisfaction of all populations across the board, why they feel so dissatisfied, other than unequal education, unequal opportunity, um,
And
different principles.
none of those things have anything to do with the trade. Does.
Nothing,
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing.
Okay, Dan, there's a second question I gave Mara Lee, and I want you to follow up on as well. But first, the first one, what's your understanding about how tariffs are and work? And then the second part is, do you think that the trade is the problem for the economic woes that a lot of Americans feel right now?
A tariff is just a tax that is used to make a good or service that comes from a certain area more expensive. Like that's literally what it's supposed to do, is to make this thing more expensive so that you don't choose to buy it and you purchase a local domestic product because that is cheaper instead. Sometimes that is going to work and sometimes that is not going to work. So if you have something,
it's never going to work. It's never going to work if the domestic product is more expensive to make in America than the one that you're getting overseas. It's never going to work.
That
right?
is not at all what I said. So it's going to work when every country does tariffs. Every single country does tariffs. If it's not going to work, nobody would bother doing it. But it works. You just have to target it. It has to be a limited scale. If you have something like bananas that every American buys, but we don't grow here, those have to be imported. So tariffing the countries where you buy bananas from just raises the price of bananas and there's no alternative that you can purchase. So that will never work. But if you are doing something like clothing, it is more expensive to produce clothing here. It is cheaper to buy clothing that is imported from Vietnam because it is cheaper to make it there. And I will touch on with both a lot of foreign goods from economically developing countries and the comment about our immigrant population. And I'll throw in the use of prison labor. Americans who didn't stop being okay with slavery after the Civil War, as long as it's much more out of sight. As long as we're not looking at it directly, we're definitely okay. But back to what I was saying, if it costs $20 to make a shirt in America and it costs $10 to make a shirt in Vietnam, most people are going to buy the Vietnamese shirt because it's always going to be cheaper. So you could use a tariff on Vietnamese goods to make both shirts cost $20. And in theory, if you have a robust shirt producing company in America, then you've leveled the playing field. It's not going to work because there is no incentive to apply the infrastructure that would cause those shirt producing companies to appear. They're not here yet. And we are wielding the tariffs as if all of these industries are just going to pop up overnight to replace these higher cost goods when it's going to take years, if not decades, to do it. And because they're being applied across the board, there's no way to balance it out. And individual billionaires are going to request carve outs. And I feel like, because I don't know when this will be published, it's important to say that it's 7:08 p.m. on April 9th, because this shit has changed 5 times today.
Just today, right?
Yeah. So as of right now, We're in a 90-day pause on all the US tariffs that were announced 2 days ago that were supposed to go into effect, I think, yesterday. We're in a new 90-day pause except for China. That was as of 2 hours ago, the last time I saw a CNN update on my phone. So who knows what it's going to be an hour from now. Now, as far as does the trade hurt, is the trade the source of the pain? Our trade deficits are not the source of the pain, but there are some issues with globalization that has hurt some areas of American life. When a lot of our communities exist for one particular industry, and we've all seen those little towns where when that industry goes away, that town becomes a hollowed out shell because there's no economic reason for it to exist anymore. There's no jobs there for the people to work. There's nothing for them to do. So people move away. Some people stick around. Some people go. So a lot of towns that existed to support a factory of some sort, if that factory moves overseas because that's more affordable, then yes, that hurts. But it's not the trade that's causing the hurt. It's the loss of the job that's causing the hurt. So the trade itself, like the tariffs are not going to fix that as they are currently being applied. In some cases, they might help with a few particular things if we already have infrastructure to start doing something domestically. But every company that pays a good paying wage and employs lots of people that creates a product like that they are all using global supply chains. So if you're gonna start tariffing all of their stuff, all it's going to do is raise the price of the product at the end with no viable alternative.
My recollection of the history of tariff controversy had in one era occurring before the Civil War, when the textile manufacturers in the North, particularly New England, wanted tariffs to protect their industry from the textile factories in Europe, in particular, Old England. The southern slave states producing massive tonnage in their cotton plantations were opposed to tariffs because they wanted to market their product to the English factories. So the issue was having tariffs protecting certain domestic industries from foreign competition while hurting other domestic industries whose sales rely on heavily on the exports to foreign buyers. Is that how you saw tariffs from your grade school history lessons? And does that exchange format still hold in the 21st century's global economy? Dan, you had a different era of education than Marilee and I. So is that something that they taught you in grade school?
The only tariff I learned about in history was the tea tax of the Revolutionary War. And we were taught that it was very unfair and very bad, and King George was a great big meanie. And that was about the extent of the information I got as going through school from 1984 through 1997.
Okay, well, then I gave you a little history lesson there about the things, how the tariffs were treated pre-Civil War. So you don't know if that's that particular. See, what I'm basically asking is tariffs that we have on some things are going to hurt some industries, foreign industries, and they're also going to hurt American industries, different American industries, like they did with the cotton. Because if we had tariffs on the textiles coming back from England, and they were going to impose tariffs on the cotton that was being shipped over to England, that seemed to me to be like something where certain industries were protected while others were not. Do you see that at all?
Oh, I see what you are saying in the example. With every policy decision that anyone makes in any government. There will be not a single everybody is happy decision. So like that does not exist. So at the end of the day, sure, some industries are going to be hurt. I guess it's more a question of can the policy be written in such a way as to mitigate the damage so that the industry will survive it. These, but don't have any questions in here about how the tariffs were calculated, which was just ridiculous. But it does seem to me that the way that they're being applied right now will not help any industry and will in fact hurt all industries in the United States.
Okay, Marilee, how do you see it from what you've learned in history about how tariffs were structured back in the day?
I mean, I think everything that you say still holds. My understanding, and the thing that I think is motivating our current president, is that we do have a lot of free trade agreements. We do have globalization. We have been the leader in this, and we set it forth. Yeah, we have tariffs with some products in some countries, and some agreements include some targeted tariffs. And we have let a lot of industry leave our country, and a lot in that primarily is because we can't do it as cheaply or as well in some instances. But we do have a lot of product that we do export. It's not, and planes and cars and a lot of our farm products as well. So I don't understand anything that's going on right now and why this is what he hopes to achieve, that he thinks that and maybe I don't mean to be jumping ahead, but
well, that's going right into the next question, but that's fine, because that's a good segue for us.
Globalization provides for emerging nations to get on board, to increase, their wealth standing. It helps healthcare. It mitigates certain, health crises in a lot of these countries, and it helps them get established in certain venues. I mean, you look at India and Cambodia and Indonesia, and they may not be wealthy countries, but through globalization, through free trade, they've been able to emerge and have a presence in this universe of ours. And I think that's a positive thing. It helps us promote democracy. It helps us promote a peaceful, unified world. And pulling back and saying that we're just, worthy of being an isolated country that builds its own products, and anything we have, everybody else must need. I don't understand it. I don't understand how we're going to develop all that infrastructure, how we have that supply chain, and how we're going to do it in 2 years, which is the time frame that we're supposed to be developing all this so-called product that we need. We're vast consumers, and it just seems unreachable to me, untenable, and inflicting all these tariffs specifically on our allies. I get that you want to maybe have a trade war with China, but even that needs to be done with some measure of intelligence, and not just a unilaterally slapping down of numbers. So
well,
did I answer?
you mentioned some element of intelligence, and I really think that there's a huge void there in what we're. But what I wanted to talk about was, like, in this next question was about what Trump understands about it that makes him want to do that, which you clearly don't understand, as you said. But if you look at the stock market in the past 4 days, and you look especially today, and Dan already mentioned the date, it went at one point, the market was up 3,000 points today. Okay, because he put on this 90-day pause, and these people just went berserko on
Everything's fine.
The world is not only fine. I mean, we're exuberant about this, and I'm sure that Trump was looking at those numbers and saying, "Oh, what a happy thing that's going on right now! This is just so wonderful." Because what I did, is made the stock market great. This is the biggest jump I think in history in one day. I think it ended up at 2,600 points. The leap after some days of just horrible falling, but I really think that the motivation, and I'll let you comment on this, Marilee, and then we'll go to Dan, is that Trump just wants to be the one that affects everything. By imposing these tariffs, he affected the global economy. By putting this pause in, he affected the global economy, and especially the stock market. And the stock market was just what he always looks at as to be the indicator of how great he's doing. And I just think that he just wants to be the most important thing ever, and this is the way he's doing it now. So, what do you think about that analysis, Marilee?
I don't disagree that there's probably something to that. He's always been a kind of a tariff guy. They're showing clips of him since the 70s, so maybe somebody put a bug in his ear at Wharton. I don't know. But he seems to think, our trade deficit has everything to do with how he can affect the monetary existence of our country
and the world.
Yeah, I would. I don't know who's advising him, but if they had not predicted this, that it would develop such insane uncertainty in our global universe, especially our financial markets, and that they would plummet because of the insecurity that he's created nationwide, or I'm sorry, not just nationwide, but across all trade markets. I mean, you look at Nikkei and FTSE and all those. I mean, they all went bottoming out. So it was. I never thought of it, but it makes sense that he just loves to be the chaos creator. He wallows in it, and he thinks that everything he does is gold, when we all very well know that everything he touches turns to shit. So it's an interesting perspective. I never thought of it.
Everybody's talking about him right now. I mean, he is he's the topic of every conversation, just about.
He loves it. Yeah.
All right, Dan, what do you think about that? He just wants to be the top dog, and this is how he does it.
Okay, so narcissism does require that one seek attention constantly. And everybody is talking about him. But I think that gets to more of the motivation rather than his understanding of what tariffs are, which I think is fundamentally flawed. Because he has been selling it as, we are gonna make so much money doing this. I think he believes that the exporting companies in that we are selling to us will pay the tariff to get their stuff into the United States, and therefore the cost of the good will stay the same, like a seller's assist on buying a home for literally everything. I think he thinks that's what's going to happen.
I agree with you. I believe that's his understanding, that they're going to suck it up on their end instead of forcing us to pay for that extra.
Yes. And while we are a great big market, there is a whole wide world out there with a lot of fucking money that probably does not need to deal with us once they find some new buyers. There are developing countries that they might have extreme poverty, but so do we. The European Union is awash with funds. They can buy a lot. We don't necessarily have to be the prime customer. So yeah, it will hurt a lot of companies to lose the American market. But I learned recently that the most popular electric car in the planet is not Tesla. It's something that exists in Europe and Asia that is not available in North America. And yeah, it is foolish of us to assume that they need us as much as we need them for certain things. So
Yeah,
yeah, they're
Brazil's
gonna
buying
roll
a lot.
die.
Yeah, Brazil's buying a lot of Chinese EVs, electric
Hmm.
vehicles. Yeah.
Well, when I wanted to get my car, I wanted a hybrid, and I knew the make and model of car that I wanted. And I kept on looking for one, and the internet kept on saying it'll be available here, it'll be available here, but the date kept getting pushed back, and I needed a car now. So eventually I had to buy the standard version, and then I came to find out that the permitting for the hybrid plant in the United States kept on getting delayed for various reasons, and that's why I couldn't get the hybrid. They're out there now, but they weren't available when I needed one.
Hmm.
So, but they were in the rest of the world. The
Mhm.
Japanese had them, the Chinese had them, the Europeans all had hybrid Toyota Corolla Crosses, but Americans didn't for 2 full years after these things existed. So yeah, there are plenty of markets that we are not privy to and not part of.
Yeah, there has been a lot of back and forth. I mean, just today, him putting that 90-day pause on what was like, a huge what do you call it, Liberation Day, 4 days ago. Uh, so, do you think? And I'll just start with you, Dan. Did he seriously planning on keeping these things permanent, or is this just something that is he's doing just to impress his supporters about how tough he is?
I do think that he thinks deep down in his soul that this is somehow going to be profitable. So he's trying, I think the 90-day pause is so that he can find a way to implement them without destroying the retirement savings of his entire base. But that's it. If he's going to do his current ham-fisted bullshit, um, if he's going to be Elon with the chainsaw, this requires a surgeon's scalpel. This requires a lot of people who are really good at economics, almost the kind who went to school for that and have some expertise, rather than some dude who bankrupts casinos. That'll
So, do you think he's going to be permanent or not, or you just don't
I
know?
think I think he wants them to be permanent. I don't know that that is going to be feasible for him. So I don't know, but I think he intended them always to be. But I think that he is. I think he was forced to back down by the massive tanking of the stock market literally every time he opens his damn mouth. And when he announced the tariffs on Liberation Day, I did learn that the reason he did that at 4:30 or whenever he did it was to make sure that the markets were closed, and that was at the request of a lot of his investor friends, so that he wouldn't tank all their wealth again that day.
So, what do you think it was before I go to Merrill Lee, Dan? What do you think it was? You think it was just the fact that the stock market was tanking so bad the past 3 days prior that caused him to put the pause in because he needed the market to rebound, and that was the
I
reason?
th- I think every Democrat from the ghost of Jimmy Carter to Kamala Harris was screaming, "Hey, go look at your 401k right now and tell me how things are working out for you." And people were doing that. I refuse to open any of mine. I do not want to know.
Yeah,
So
right.
until the Great Recession hits again, I don't want to look and see how much money that I've lost and that I'm going to be working until I'm 70.
Well, Merrill Lee, what do you think it was? Or no, the question is, do you think that there's any permanence to this, or is he going to be back and forth like a yo-yo?
I fear that he's coming back with it. Because he seems to, I mean, he's latched onto this for a very long time. And that's one thing he literally talked about throughout his campaign. He believes in it. He doesn't seem to have any regard for our allies and what their needs are. I do understand that the reason he put that 90-day pause in today was because it wasn't the stock market, it was the bond market that started reacting very negatively. And I think that's when he started to listen to all his billionaire friends. It's also quite possible this may be a conspiracy theory, but all of this was done to enhance the wealth of his billionaire friends who could get privy to when he was going to put the 90-day pause in. And so they could re-enter that market and buy up shares.
Yeah, what they bought today were shares that were very low priced.
Right.
Until the end of the day.
Yeah, Amazon was under 200, all that stuff. So it's quite possible that was part of it too, is just a little payback for them for supporting him. But I do think he's going to continue on this tariff thing. I think he believes in it tenfold. It's possible it could become like his, infrastructure project and never come to be again.
Have a lot of infrastructure days have never really won the county. Yeah.
If he gets a lot of pushback, from people that matter to him, it's possible. But I think he's coming back with it, and we all need to take that under advisement and shore up our 401s.
Good possibility. The threats and official executive orders have caused quite a bit of international anxiety and reaction. But the most dramatic response, as of the time I wrote these questions, came from our largest trading partner, the neighbor to the north. The Premier of Ontario announced a 25% surcharge of electricity it sells to American customers. Before he left office, retired Prime Minister Trudeau said that $155 billion of retaliatory tariffs on American imports would remain in place. Even after Trump paused back then, he paused that too. His initial threat during one of his frequent yo-yo imitation acts, and today he really had a big-time yo-yo imitation act. The Premier of British Columbia suggested that the Talkin Highway to Alaska will soon be collecting tolls from American truckers. Mayor of Toronto, the fourth largest city in North America, has announced a ban on U.S. companies from bidding on municipal contracts, among other retaliatory actions. Hockey fans are regularly booing during the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. There's a largely forgotten bit of history, and that's called the Canadian Caper, where their government, at great risk to their diplomats, secretively and successfully rescued 6 American embassy workers during the Iranian hostage crisis. Argonne, I think, was the name of that movie. The current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said he is willing to negotiate tariffs once Canada is shown respect as a sovereign nation. But he came out the other day and said the era of American supremacy and leadership is over. He just can't trust it anymore. Is Trump capable of showing respect to anyone that doesn't fully acquiesce to his glorification? And how does he manage to declare victory when the economies of both nations go into recession? First of all, Marilee, do you think that our economy and the Canadian economy, because of this trade thing, is going into recessions? And do you think Trump's capable of showing any respect to Canada?
He absolutely has no respect for anybody. No, I don't think he's capable of it. He's been rude from day one, calling them the 51st state and mocking them. It's a travesty how he treats our allies. He mocks his own agreement from 2020, the trade agreement he wrote with Mexico and Canada. I admire Canada for coming back. He's a bully, and I think they bullied very smartly when they came back at him. They showed intelligence. They weren't unilateral about it, just spouting off stuff. And they stopped buying our Kentucky whiskey. And I love that.
Right.
I love it because I that gets Mitch McConnell's attention and all these other people who always pander to Trump's ego. So, and I'd like to also put out there that when we had our Palisades fire, it was Mexican firefighters that came up and helped, and it was Canadian planes that dipped into the Pacific Ocean. And once they could fly, once the winds died down and started putting, dousing water on this horrific nightmare we had out here, they've always been there for us. And this was even after, he started spouting some of his craziness. So I don't think he's capable of respecting any of our allies. We see it in Europe. He only seems to like his dictators, and I think Putin must be just thrilled with how we're abdicating our leadership in the world and handing it over to China.
Dan, you've been going to Canada a lot lately. How's your view of the Canadian population? Are you able to interact with them much, and what do you see there?
I went 2 weeks ago. I went to Toronto, and last weekend I was in Niagara Falls. So let me say firmly, when they start arresting people, I'm on Canada's side. Canada is being treated horribly here, and we owe them massive apologies. When I went to visit my friend in Toronto, I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to bring him that he was not able to get currently. I specifically cited some Tennessee whiskey, and his immediate reaction was, no, I will be crucified if I'm found with American whiskey in my home. And that was not true last year, but it is true now. Um, the reaction has really united Canada. I am told by my Canadian friends that the Liberal Party that was supposed to fade with Trudeau, and then the Conservatives were going to win this next election. Oh no! Oh no! 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 Carney is going to win. Very, very handily, because his opponent, the Conservative Party, is more Trumpy, and the Canadians are fucking furious. The Quebecois have not wanted to be part of Canada for the last 40 to 50 years, and now they are quite proud to be Canadian. So, yeah, the Canadians are very, very united in their response. Also, their tariffs are interesting. They did not tariff literally everything across the board the way that Trump is doing. They are specifically targeting their tariffs, almost as if they understand how economics work, to hit specific areas of the United States that supported Trump. Now, the Premier of Ontario, he only sells electricity to blue areas, and I believe that they have backed off on that. Last I knew, they are no longer tariffing the electricity they sell to the United States. They primarily sell it to the state of New York. I
think Michigan gets some too. I think we're selling some to Michigan too.
I know when we had the great brownout of 2020, that hit me in Pennsylvania from the incident in Niagara Falls, but we still had power. I was to the point of, yeah, you guys can just stop selling to us altogether and let us deal with our own fucking problem. But Premier Ford does not listen to me. But he has backed off from it. But they're tariffing things that come out of Florida, rather than things that come out of California. So they can buy some agricultural products from the United States, but not others.
How does that work? You say there's specific red states that they're targeting. Is it like specific companies, or?
Tesla is a specific company.
Okay.
And I did watch a lot of people in Toronto spit on the Cybertruck that they were seeing in the wild as they just walked by. It was really funny. But things like the funniest example is the Canadians have a tariff on manatee meat. I don't think that's actually a thing that gets sold, but manatees only live one place in the United
Yeah,
States.
Florida, right?
So if you did that with certain things like alligator meat is delicious and that gets exported all over the world, that only comes from red states. That's Florida, Louisiana. That's where you raise alligators for processing and other alligator products. Oranges are mostly Floridian product as well. So if you have something that is made specifically in a red state that is supporting a red state economy, like Jack Daniel's whiskey, for example, it's easy to tariff that particular product. Other things like we make wine all over the country. You can grow grapes anywhere. So it would be harder to tariff wine, but we only make whiskey in Kentucky. So it's easy to tariff whiskey. Um, so yeah, they're trying not to hurt the majority of Americans. I think they might be being a little too nice, but Canadians are nothing if not polite. So they're retaliating against the people that they perceive hurt them. Um, I think that there might be something wrong with the character of Americans at this point, and we all perhaps should go down in this one together. But they don't want to completely destroy the economy. They just want Trump to back the fuck off. It's very clear that the whole 51st state rhetoric, which they do find extraordinarily insulting, by the way,
Right.
that one is they know he wants their resources. He's not going things that if he's tariffing everything from Canada, well, that's the hardwood trees that you need for every bit of American construction. You can't build a house out of like soft pine. That house is going to fall down in 5 years. So, yeah, you need the hardwood forests that you get up north. He definitely wants their natural gas. Pennsylvania cannot supply the entire United States with our fracking. He wants all of that stuff. He won't have to tariff it if they're the 51st state. That's why he wants Greenland. He wants their mineral rights. But it's got nothing to do with security. He wants to pillage them.
Okay, how about the rest of the world, especially Europe? You think they're going to cave in to Trump? Today, he just said, well, with this pause, everybody's coming to negotiate with me. Do you think they're going to take the shit sandwich he's offering, or do you think they're going to stand strong like Canada? Dan?
I want them to stand strong. There is going to be some temporary hardship to standing strong while they readjust their markets to losing one of their biggest customers. But yesterday, CNN news update flashed across my phone saying that the EU had entered into negotiations, and then I couldn't find anything about it again. So I don't know. I'm hoping that they will. I think France and Britain are going to have to step up and be the new nuclear umbrella for NATO. So I'm hoping that the rest of Europe is just going to follow suit and say, yeah, fuck this guy. We don't need to deal with you. And enjoy your shit grape juice wine, Americans.
Marilee, what about the rest of the world? Do you think they're going to stand up to Trump, or do you think they're going to cave in?
I do understand the EU is putting forth some retaliatory tariffs this morning. So although they may be willing to negotiate, they were coming out with their own tariffs. I don't know on what. I never saw anything beyond what came out this morning. But they're also doing their own other agreements. I mean, they're looking to other countries. They're looking to the Quad, Australia and India, Brazil, China, Japan. They have other opportunities for developing, using the already existing corridors for trade, so that are already over there and are more accessible to them. I hope that they continue with the bullying or standing up to him. I don't see any reason why they would want to cave. They have their own people to think about. There's no benefit to bowing to the United States on any that I can see on any big picture. There may be a product line here or there, but why anybody has to resort, I guess in the big picture, he's already he's abandoning Ukraine. He's pulling troops out of Eastern Europe. He has no regard for Europe's protection. He's given nothing for security to anybody. He's pulled all of US aid. He offers nothing to any of these countries. We used to lead in all of that, and now we are giving absolutely no security in any way, shape, or form. Why should they? They need to develop their own enterprises, their own security systems, their own corridors for trade, and keep their people safe.
Yeah, I think what they should do, and I'm talking about the entire world, is have a zero tariff trade agreement with everybody and have the United States not be invited to that meeting,
Yeah.
and then just go ahead and reciprocate all you want, pal. You're not getting nothing from us, but the rest of the world's going to be doing just fine.
And then how are we going to get those rare earth minerals that you are talking about, Dan?
We're going to invade Greenland. There's only 56,000 of them, and Denmark can't fight us off.
Throughout American history, the first and third constitutional branches have ceded their powers to Article 2, the executive branch, to the point where wars cannot be stopped by Congress, and a criminal enterprise operating in the White House cannot be stopped by the courts. In the case of tariffs, there seems to be no authority other than the whims of whoever is president at the time. As this madness continues unchecked by any reasonable restraint, do you get a sense of general regret that we have allowed the president to become so powerful in the republic established as a reaction to being ruled by a monarch? Marilee, we're of a similar mindset here, as far as you and me and Dan go. But do you feel like there's a general regret around the rest of the population of the United States about the president becoming so powerful that he can do all this horrible stuff and not be stopped by anything or anyone?
I'm not feeling it yet.
Okay.
I mean, I have always carried it, and I know a lot of us have, but not the ones who are in that party. I feel that they're pandering to him excessively still and concede all their power to him. I don't see anything coming from Congress at all. When there was some talk about trying to pull trade back from him and tariff power, but that's fallen through the cracks. So, I mean, if you look back through the years, yeah, things have not always gone perfectly. But at the end of the day, the Constitution was respected, the rule of law was respected, our executive, judicial branches were respected, and people kind of fell in line, and people honored that. But since he's been in office, the only thing they clamor for is power, and whatever means it takes to gather that power. And if it's honoring him because he has a MAGA base, then so be it. That's what they're going to do. I see absolutely no real consciousness. Yeah, everybody losing their 401k. That was going to bring a big uprising, from a real voter block. A lot of people already having to lay off in their small businesses, or people who have done business abroad and selling their product here, but are having it manufactured. A lot of these people are already changing how they do things. They're not renewing the leases. They're going out of business. They're laying off all their people. We just haven't seen the effects of it, and Congress hasn't felt the real wrath yet. So at this pace and this point in time, they're just patting him on the back. What a master class of tariff handling he just conducted.
Yeah. Any general regret, Dan, that you see about the presidency becoming so powerful that he can't be stopped?
No, and I'm very disillusioned with the Democratic Party at the moment, having voted for every Democratic presidential election um, since Bush won for 25 years. I've always voted for the Democratic nominee. Um, no one in elected office has any desire to limit the power of the presidency in any way because the Democrats had the opportunity to do that in 2020 when Joe Biden won. And it never occurred to a single one of them to make sure that if something like this happened again, these powers would be curtailed. They did not want to limit the power of their own guy. So we're all just going to deal with what happens with Donald Trump involved. Now, the next Democratic administration, if there's a Republican Congress, I suspect the same thing will happen. The Republicans will do everything they can to obstruct and disrupt that presidency, but they will also not do a goddamn thing to limit the power of the office because they know eventually they're going to have their guy back again. So I don't see anything okay with this one. Now, Republicans do subscribe more to the unitarian executive theory, which gives the president much more power than he currently wields. So they want to do away with any kind of guardrail on it, but Democrats don't have any interest in limiting it. We have spent the last 200 years letting norms and traditions curtail the power of the presidency rather than bothering to write anything down. Like Donald Trump never released his tax returns anytime. Everybody else did. That was tradition. It was expected, but nothing forced him to do it. So why would he do it? I don't know what everybody thought was they were going to find in there other than he loses a bunch of money. But yeah, there's no smoking gun in there other than he's an incompetent businessman. But he didn't have to do it. So why would he do it? Elon Musk did not have to divest from his business interests to be the first buddy and destroyer of so many lives. And he's still getting awarded government contracts. He didn't have to do it. It's not written down anywhere that he has to do it. It's not enforceable. So no, clearly no one cared. We just expected that people were going to do this, and if it's not written into law, then clearly no one has any interest in pursuing it.
Yeah, but even if things are written into law, they seem to be pretty much ignoring whatever he doesn't like in the law. Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about immigration next time, but that's another issue. Do you see the bullying of tariff policy that affects the global economic structure to the extent that the American economy goes downhill enough? Dan, do you think that we're entering a time of recession now? You think a recession's coming because of Trump's tariffs?
Oh yeah, 100% a recession is coming. I don't know that it necessarily can be stopped at this point. Like, in order to keep your economy from not falling into a recession, you need growth. It doesn't have to be crazy high. In fact, it shouldn't be crazy high because that's one of the things that triggers inflation. But it needs to be stable. He's not allowing for stability, and tariffs are only one economic disaster. Like Merle and I talked about immigration earlier. We rely on low paid labor in this country that comes from immigrants, particularly undocumented immigrants, because they don't have any kind of recourse if an employer underpays them or treats them badly. You want to pay $4 an hour when the minimum wage is $7? What are you going to do? ICE is going to deport you if you bitch. So, yeah, we rely on that in this country. I said earlier, we are okay with slavery as long as it's out of sight, out of mind. So that's going to disrupt our economy, particularly in food and agriculture and the construction industry. So yeah, you know, we're never going to recover that. We're just going to blunder around. Um, tariffs will raise the prices while we don't have a workforce to do a lot of the things that we need done anymore. So you're going to have to pay someone a higher wage to do it, which means you're going to have fewer of them doing it. Yeah, it's we are teetering on the brink. We are not getting a $5,000 Doge check. That is not happening. And I will say it, and people can at me, you're a fucking idiot if you think that you're going to find enough money to give you 5 grand. Um, but if I get one, I'll give it to Planned Parenthood or something. But yeah, there's absolutely no way that we're going to come through this unscathed unless an adult enters the room that Donald will listen to. And there is
There's no
precedent.
such adult. There's
There,
no
there
such.
was precedent. There were people that he would back off for before, like during COVID, he listened to Fauci, and that's why the right all hates Fauci, but seems to have completely forgiven Donald for all the things that he said and did during COVID to try to help ameliorate things. Like Donald, they don't blame at all. They blame Fauci for it. But no one is going to step up and do that, and there's no one I think that he would listen to at this point.
All right, Marilee, recession, is that where we're headed?
I would imagine. At this point, I don't know how many federal workers have lost their job. I don't know if there's a real
I think we're into
accounting.
tens of thousands. I think tens of thousands federal workers have lost their job.
Those are typically well-paid jobs, people who pay taxes back into the system. Um, I mean, I'm thinking it's more like hundreds of thousands at this
Could
point.
be. Yeah, right, right.
When you think of just 80,000 coming out of the VA
Yeah.
and HSS so there's a whole white collar spectrum that's getting totally nixed, never to be brought back in, at least under his regime. And then losing our entire immigrant population. Now they're trying to find out who literally pays taxes in the system and using the IRS filings to find people to deport. There's no low here that they will, but this is also our our workforce. So if you don't have um, all of this in play, I think we're absolutely going to feel all the effects of everything he's been gutting. Um, your scientists, your research, your doctors, your teachers. How many of these are women head of households, especially in these sectors? It's just unfathomable what he's done already with respect
Okay.
to unemployment.
Yeah.
So I don't see how we can, and now he's adding his tariff guru program into the mix, which is just taking care of other previously safe areas. So, yeah, how can you avoid recession, depression? I don't know where we're heading, but it's not an uptick.
And the personal pain of this financial hardship, as recession, as you two have predicted, change the minds of the MAGA believers as to who is really to blame. Do you think they'll be able to see who caused all this, Marilee?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
The guy has what, 5 bankruptcies? How many people did he rip off in his lifetime? How many convictions for fraud and tax evasion? His dark, shady business matters, and they voted for him twice anyway. There's nothing that qualifies him to be in this position, and yet they vote for him. They idolize him. They're making excuses for him now. They think Doge is genius. All these federal workers were on the dole for doing nothing. I just They're blaming Biden. A
Yeah.
lot of this still has to do with Biden.
Hillary and Obama, too, are at fault.
So no, no, they will not unlatch from the cult.
Okay, Dan, they drank the Kool-Aids, but are they ever going to figure out who is really causing this shit to happen?
No, there will always be someone else to blame, and Trump is good at creating scapegoats.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Biden, it's Hillary, it's Obama, it's Bill. You can just go back. AOC, I'm sure, is personally draining their 401k accounts. He's definitely going to just blame everyone except him. It couldn't possibly be his policies. Um, it's not even his fault that his first two marriages failed. Whose fault is it then? These people are true believers, but there are a group of people who voted for him who I would not consider MAGA. I don't have a lot of good things to say about low information voters because the concept of that is alien to me. And I do think a lot of them just don't pay attention to the world around them. There are some people who do that who, okay, I get it. You're a single parent working 80 hours a week. Yeah, I get why you might not be up on politics. Totally understand it. But there are a lot of others who just don't care and then want their voices to be heard every 4 years, only at presidential elections. Don't vote in locals, don't vote in midterms, don't vote in special election, don't do any of that. Only come out to vote for the president. A lot of those people who just don't pay attention, I think we can get them. They can be persuaded. Like they took Trump at his word, and the first time around, he got the old people. He got the old white people in record numbers. This time around, he got the young people, particularly young men, people who were in high school and college during COVID and feel like a lot of COVID responses that were still in place under Biden after the vaccines were out uh, they were losing and missing experiences, and they blamed the nanny state for that. So then they have this guy who is not abnormal to them. Like Donald Trump is an aberrant creature to us because we're older and we've seen what the traditional American politician looks like and acts like, and he's not that. But if you're 30 or under now, that's all you know is people who act like that and these women who stand up to him. And then he beats them down and does whatever he's going to do anyway. That is normal politics to those people. So he's got young people. What they're going to have to see is his promises broken. Like they're never going to be able to buy a house. Their car prices just went up by 25% if they want to get anything new. They're never going to be able to make good on these. So they believed him because he's normal to them and this is what they expected. He has to break his promises and we can get them. But those people are never going to be devoted to a political ideology one way or another. Low information voters are going to stay that way. So you have to, if we can make them understand, if we can get them to see the through line between good things happening when a Democrat wins versus bad things happening when Trump wins, we can persuade those people. But a hardcore MAGA person, like there's no one who thinks like Marjorie Taylor Greene is ever gonna turn on their Lord and Savior.
Last question: how are you handling this shit show emotionally, Dan? You feeling any pressure as far as your emotional health goes overall?
Oh yeah, it's not great. It is not great. I am taking, I've turned off notifications on my phone for long periods of the day because every time I see something from CNN, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I am stress eating more. I am deliberately abstaining from alcohol unless I'm with other people because, as much as I might want a glass of wine at the end of the day, I have concerns that that's going to turn into a bottle. So I'm just not doing it unless I'm with other people, and then the alcohol stays with them. Um, but yeah, this is a very stressful time. And I'm questioning a lot of my political allegiances and why the ideology of the Democrats failed. And I definitely think there is something wrong with a lot of Americans that we elected this twice. I can understand it the first time because we were manipulated into hating Hillary Clinton, we in the American sense, and she still won the popular vote despite having a 30-year smear campaign against her for no reason. Then Kamala Harris, like, okay, well, you promised to be just like Joe Biden, except a lady. In 2020, she was my pick. I did not want Biden to be president. And he was perfectly serviceable, but he just couldn't do the performative stuff. And then she, who could do it, still would not break from his policies. And that got me very jaded with her. And for as much as we all believe that this was an existential threat, there was no backup plan. Like, she was the last best hope. And when that didn't work out, not a single person had an alternative. Like, I hate Bernie Sanders, but at least he's out there doing something right now.
What about you, Marilee? How are you handling all this emotionally?
Not well. It's I think the human rights violations, the total disregard for all the federal employees, bringing somebody in with a chainsaw, it was just so reprehensible to me. Keep in mind, I was a public servant, so I feel that people do have a sense of honor about their jobs and commitment. Uh, I can't. I just don't know how many executive orders this man has signed that
And they're
represent
all
some
cruel.
level of hate.
Yeah,
Hmm?
all those executive orders are all based on cruelty.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's unfathomable. And now, we're forget climate change. I don't know what's going to happen to that. We're on drill baby drill, cut whatever wood whatever trees you want to, we can deforest anything. Um, I imagine it's just a matter of time before he withdraws from the Paris Agreement, but even though so, I can't imagine he's going to do anything to help us abide by it. So I think it's a real shit show, as you call it. There's no rule of law anymore. You got Pam Bondi, for God's sake, who's more concerned about a burned up Tesla than she is about the people they're shipping to this El Salvadorian prison.
Right.
It's Yeah, it's beyond the pale. I have no comprehension of it. Yeah, I turned everything off. I went off Facebook, and now I only go on Facebook to post negative Trump things. I just, I'll at least use it as a tool because I get something from it. So that's it. But
Oh, one thing I would like to add, going back to how the Canadians and the rest of the world are responding, um, which I was just realized when Marilee mentioned posting negative things about Trump on Facebook. Every Canadian I know who has any intention of coming into the United States has a separate burner phone that has no social media on it. They just went to Walmart and got another phone that has no
really,
connection to any account because when you cross the border, your phone is subject to examination by the border guards and people are being turned away.
Yeah, Europeans are being detained at the border because of their social media. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely happening. Yeah.
yeah,
And they
sounds like
all
I
have
might
a
be too.
they didn't seize my phone, but I was showing proof of citizenship when I was coming back through. So at least yet. But since we don't have due process now, it's only a matter of time before an American citizen gets swept up, and you have no way to prove that you are swept up incorrectly because there is no more due process. So that's a
Right.
fun thing that we all have to look forward to.
Well, Dan and Marilee, I'm glad to hear that you are both taking your emotional health seriously and taking steps to keep it intact. And I'm sure that you're not alone in being worried about the anxiety that this administration is putting on us. So thank you both for joining us. And until next time, all of you out there in Cyberland, thanks for listening. And we'll see you then. Bye now.
I ain't too proud to say I cried when I heard the tariffs were applied by an orange man whose hair is dyed. And so Ontario replied. And now we're singing, oh my, this American guy. He put a levy on our Chevy so the factories die. I drink urine before bourbon, so buy whiskey and rye, and point your elbows up to the sky. Elbows up! I ripped my good suit.